Good morning and welcome to the new episode of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Call. Just a week back on the 15th, India and Pakistan celebrated their independence. 75 years passed when these two young nations came into being. But the celebrations, they always say, do call for introspection. And these two nations have a very curious love hate relationship. Love because of the jealousy, because jealousy is born out of love and envy. Hatred because of the various factors historical, social, religious, and so on. 47 came, both of them started their journey, and both are now turning 75 as modern nations. Their shared history and civilization has generated a sense of rivalry between the two, and that rivalry goes far beyond the cricket. So, isn't it time to see that in these 3 quarters of a century, how they have fared? There's no denying the fact that despite its small size, lesser population, there was a time when India was way behind Pakistan. Now I know that most of the Indians will not like to hear that, but that's the reality. It was much better. Pakistan was much better placed on the key socio-economic indices like per capita income or even literacy. But then what happened? India took giant steps and was able to bridge the gap. And not only did it bridge the gap, but it far outstripped Pakistan, becoming to the fore and today hoping to be the top nation, if not the first, at least the second or the third. Today is the fourth. With that sort of a thing, the rivalry naturally has increased. And I'm happy that the new Prime Minister of Pakistan has said that the war is no solution and we have to live in peace. So what happened? And what is the reason for this change? The reasons are both social, political, and economic. India has stable government over the years, and it has directly focused on the economic growth. India has shed the weight of the colonial past to emerge as a global superpower in its own right. Did Pakistan also see a similar growth story? So let's look at the various parameters since independence, how the two countries have fared. And then, I'm amazed. Life expectancy, people want. 1950. Indian life expectancy, the average, was 31 years. Pakistan, 34 years, 3 years more than India. Today, in 2022, Indian life expectancy is 69.8 years. Pakistan, 67.4 years. So at one time it was 3 years ahead. Today it is 3 years down. GDP per capita, and that is the most shocking one. In 1950, India was just $82. Pakistan was same, 83.3. But today, in 2021, Indian is $2,274. Pakistan is $1,500. So while they were at par, Pakistan has gone down. Economy in billion dollars. Indian economy in 1950 was 37 billion dollars. 37 billion. Pakistan was way down, 3.74 billion. And today, the economy of Pakistan is much higher. In 2028, 346 billion, Pakistan, India 318. But then I go to literacy. India has always maintained a lead. In 1950, it was 18.3. Today it is 74. Pakistan was 16.4, but unfortunately it's just 58. Infant mortality rate, that's very important, because infant mortality rate shows how we are doing. In India, in 1950, it was 5.9 per thousand. Today it is 2.2. Pakistan was 6.6 and now it's 3.4. So either way, we have been seeing a lot of change, and Pakistan has been changing for the worse. Why is it? As I said, mostly it's because of the political reasons. India has been politically very stable. But before I come to that, look at the poverty. What percentage of the population is below the poverty line? In 2004, because before that they never bothered about that, India's poverty line was 37%. Pakistan's poverty line was 51%. And now they are at par, both are 21.9%. Electricity consumption. That means what percentage of the population has electricity access. In 1998, only 56% of the Indian population could have electricity. Today it's 99%. Pakistan in 99 had 70.5 and now it has 75, same. There is not much change. And this is amazing that Pakistan has either gone down or deteriorated, and that's not a happy thing for the people. For any nation, when the poverty increases, when the life expectancy falls down, when the infant mortality rate changes, things are bad. Then foreign exchange reserves, that is in $1 billion. Indian foreign exchanges in 1960 was 60.67 billion, and Pakistan in 1960 was 0.32 billion. So India was much more. But today, India has 572 billion and Pakistan has just 7 billion. Is that possible for a country with just 7%, $7 billion foreign reserves to be able even to exist? Because this is a global village. And look at the defense expenditure. Because both the countries spend a lot on defense. And we find that the defense expenditure, if we see, is shockingly high as far as Pakistan is concerned. They are 3 times more than in India. And that is a tragedy, because instead of spending on the social need, they are spending on unnecessary. In 1960, for example, Indian defense expenditure was 0.68 billion. Pakistan was 2 billion. 0.2 billion, sorry. And now Pakistan has 10 billion. Of course, India has gone much more, it's 70 billion. But look at the per capita expenditure as a share of the GDP. When the GDP shows that the Pakistan military has eaten much more than the social sector has. Now, you must be thinking that why I've shown various education, literacy, infrastructure like availability of electricity, defense, foreign exchange reserves, poverty, name it. Why is it that India is advanced? It is primarily because A, there was a stability. When the government is stable, it can look far beyond everyday life. For example, the first election in India took place in 1951. In Pakistan, they had to wait till 1970 to have the first election. Now imagine a country being ruled, so-called democratic, prime ministers, presidents, of course the military coups was also there. But the first time the people exercised their right to vote was 1970. From 47 to 1970, there was no election. So what sort of a democracy was it? Whether it was a democracy in the American sense, or whether it was, excuse me, whether it was democracy as you call the basic democracy. The fact is that the concept of no taxation without representation was written goodbye. Then look at it. How many prime ministers completed their term? Now that's a sign of stability. In India, there have been 8 prime ministers till now who completed their 5 years term, tenure. Now whether it's 5 years or 4 years, because in US it's 4 years, in Canada it's 4 years, but in India it's 5 years, Pakistan is 5 years. In Pakistan, there is not a single prime minister who has completed his tenure. 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, killed, arrested, exiled. That's a tragedy of Pakistan. Not a single, and India on the other hand, in 75 years, 8 prime ministers completed their term. Of course, India had a back time from 1977 to 80, when Janata regime was there and the prime minister would come and go. It was a revolving door. Total number of prime ministers in India till today are 14. Pakistan had 20. And now imagine 20 prime ministers when there have been 4 times a military rule for a much longer period. Pakistan military rule has been much longer than the civilian rule. So in the short time, which was less than half that time, Pakistan has 20 prime ministers and India has just 14. Then the longest prime minister who served in India was Nehru. He worked as a prime minister for 6,130 days. Pakistan's longest prime minister was Liaquat Ali Khan. He worked for 1,524 days. The first prime minister, and he was assassinated, killed. When the prime minister was not saved, you can understand the sense of the shock and the misery that was sent. So with this sort of a thing, leadership, then army is absolutely in India apolitical. They don't have any political ambitions. They are at the beck and call of the civilian authority. Not so in Pakistan. In Pakistan, army is in fact the final arbiter. Final decision is by the army and not by the civilian forces. And that makes a difference. If it's benevolent dictatorship, there is some benefit. But if out and out military boots ruling, they kill initiative, they kill creativity. For example, General Zia ordered that nobody would wear a sari. Ridiculous. So one of the finest singers, Banu, she wore a black sari and sang a song. They couldn't control it. So political instability, rule of army, has created a sense of deja vu in that country. And today, Pakistan and India, the difference is like this. They started the same. India has gone up. And incidentally, as I said, to begin with, Pakistan had a much better economy than India had. But because of infighting, because of civil war, because of intolerance. Pakistan, people suffered, the country suffered. A country which could have been a competitor to Malaysia and Turkey and Saudi Arabia combined is today no better than being called sick man of Asia. And that's a tragedy. So political stability, vision, peace, they are of paramount importance as far as economy is concerned. And these two countries celebrating their 75 years have to reconsider whether the defense expenditure is to be reduced and that money to be put towards increasing the social well-being, or to continue to endeavor to fight where nobody wins. Anyway, this comparison does show the need of political stability and the need of vision for the development of the people. Thank you.